Hello and welcome to the June 2025 Hero Studio Card Kit of the Month. Let's take a closer look at everything that's included in this month's card kit. First up, we have the Summer State of Mind stamp set. This is a 6x8 clear stamp set and contains a ton of images to build a relaxing coastal beach scene. In addition to all the images, there are also 8 sentiments that pair perfectly with this set. There's also a coordinating die set that will die cut out all of the images and even those 8 sentiments. Also included in the card kit is the beach bag die set. Cut a stylish beach bag brimming with summer essentials like champagne, baguette, flowers, and sunglasses, everything you need for a perfect afternoon at the beach. And of course, what's the beach without a little bit of sand? Also included in the kit is this awesome sand embossing powder. Use this to add some wonderful texture and shine to your projects. And the last thing included in the card kit is a pack of colored cardstock. You get 10 half sheets, 5 colors total. The colors are fawn, coral, seaside, waterfall, and blue spruce. Now that we looked at everything in the card kit, let's create a card. I'm going to start off with that Summer State of Mind stamp set. I pulled off several images from that set, and I'm going to stamp it onto Hero Art's Luxe White watercolor paper. We're actually going to do a little bit of watercoloring over these images. I ink them up and then stamp them in the Hero Art's Intensified Black ink. This is my favorite black ink. It's not only alcohol marker friendly, but it's also waterproof, which is perfect because we're doing watercoloring. After I stamped my images, I then grabbed a palette and then I grabbed my reactive inks, and I'm now pressing them on to the palette here. I'm going to watercolor these images in with my reactive inks. I'm using blue raspberry, taffy, creamsicle, lemon drop, fruit punch, and root beer. I spritz some water down onto my palette that I'm going to use to kind of add to the reactive inks to make them flow a little bit better and make them easier to paint. And right now I am mixing up a tan with the root beer, fruit punch, and lemon drop that I will then use to color these sandals. I'll even water it down to color the hat and the sand dollar as well. I do want to also note here that I am using a water brush, but my water brush is totally empty of water, so the chamber has no water in it. The only water that I'm using to watercolor is the water that I sprayed down onto my work surface. Now that I finished up the sandals, I'm going to go and water down that tan and use that tan color that we mixed up to watercolor the hat. And that'll create some nice contrast, so it's not all just this one tone of brown, but still stay in the color family. Now we're going to move on to adding some shadows. So actually the watercolor is already dry because I do use very little water. And since it's dry, I can now go in and add some of this root beer to kind of create some contrast in the look of shadow, so these sandals look more dimensional. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing, though a little bit lighter though, with the root beer for the hat, adding in some shadows and a little bit of texture as well. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of pull back or pull away and let you guys kind of watch while I color in the rest of my images. So I just finished watercoloring my images and they are now all dry. So I'm going to go ahead and use those coordinating dies to die cut them all out. Now that they're all cut out, we're going to move on to our background. I have an A2 panel of Seaside cardstock. Now this is one of the colored cardstocks that are included in the card kit. I applied some anti-static powder and then I took the Hero Arts embossing and watermark ink pad and pressed it over, kind of creating like a somewhat circular or oval shape in the center of this panel with that embossing powder. So after the watermark and embossing ink pad rather. Now that I finished pressing that ink pad over the surface, I'll then pour over that wonderful sand embossing powder. It'll stick, of course, to everywhere we press down with that embossing and watermark ink. I'll tap off the excess, and since the ink is clear, I'm not always sure exactly where I'm getting ink. I got a little too much ink here and there, so I'm just using a paintbrush here to kind of remove some of the sand embossing powder because I just had it a little too close to the edge. Once I remove the excess, I'll then kind of fix any places that I messed up where I just took a little too much, and once I'm happy with that panel, I'll then pour the leftover sand back into the little container, and then of course I'll heat set that embossing powder with my heat tool. And this sand embossing powder is just so cool. It's the perfect bit of texture. It looks just like sand and also has a little bit of shine to it too, so it's very, very pretty. I'm using a nesting rectangle die here to trim down my panel, and now that it's trimmed down, I'll go ahead and adhere it onto an A2 top folding white card base. I'm using a tape runner to stick that down. Once I've got that back all covered, I'll center and place that down so we have a nice little border of white. Once that's stuck down, the last thing we have to do is kind of arrange all of our images. So I have all those watercolored images die cut out. I'm just going to arrange them. Once I get that arrangement the way I like it, I'll then pick them up with a piece of press and seal. And you may notice in the lower right, I do have my sentiment stamped and die cut out. That of course is from the Summer State of Mind stamp set. I just did that off camera. And then I'll flip over my die cuts, add some foam adhesive to the back side, remove the backing on that foam adhesive, stick those guys down. I'll then remove the backing on that sentiment so I can get a little bit better placement with him using my tweezers, stick that down, and then that will actually complete my card. I'll hold it to the camera here so you can get a good look at how this card turned out. I just love how this scene came together, the images plus that sand background, so good. Hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. Thank you so much for joining, and we can't wait to see your creations.